Good day, everyone who's tuning in right now to this live IELTS stream. My name is Adrian, and I am broadcasting to you live from the Carpathian Basin, Hungary, capital city of Budapest. Welcome, Sagar. Welcome, Ashok. Welcome, Muhammad. Welcome, Deepa. Hi, Sarah Atef. I hope all of you are doing well. Hello, Muhammad Wahab. Good to see a member joining in nice and early. All right, everyone. Today we're looking at some IELTS speaking strategies part 3. Today is October 12th, 2018. And as usual, materials come from our websites for some world-class IELTS preparation materials that you can use on your phone, tablet, PC. Check us out, Academic IELTS, aehelp.com. And general IELTS is gieltshelp.com. Of course, there's two versions of IELTS. Different students need it for different purposes, so we separate them out so as not to confuse you. Make sure you know which IELTS version or module you need to take, and take the right one, and join us at the right website. Okay, I'll show you those websites just super quickly. I'll flash them for you. If you're studying for academic IELTS, check us out on this website with the blue background. That's aehelp.com. And if you're studying for general IELTS, then check us out here with this green background. You log in at the top, then you'll be in your My Student page where you will find a lot of great materials, videos, practice exams, interactive quizzes, and much, much more. So definitely go there and join that full course. All right. I can't read the Cyrillic. I'm sorry. I should probably learn Cyrillic soon. But your IELTS exam is tomorrow. I see that. I will keep my fingers crossed and hope you do well in your exam. And I hope all students who have exams this weekend will do their best and will have some luck on their side and get some amazing scores. All right, some other quick notes here. You can get our books from Amazon. Just search for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps Academic IELTS, and you can buy or order our exam books from Amazon in hard copy or digital version, so they can be useful to follow these live classes. If you have questions about IELTS or our products, don't be shy. Send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. I'll make sure the right person gets it, and you get the best answer possible. Ashok, good luck with your speaking test tomorrow. It is a good thing you have joined into this class because I will help you out with part 3. Here's our schedule, Central European Time, CET time. If you put this into Google, CET time zone, you'll see the difference between your time and Central European time. If you're in Central Europe, that's the same time. Usually the live classes are 15 to 16 o'clock. Today, part 3 speaking. Tomorrow, it's a members chat only class. Then we have a video shoot coming on Sunday and a couple other days of no class. So there'll be 3 days of no class. And then we are back at it on the 17th with Task 1 strategy, reading strategy, speaking part 2, and another members chat. Okay, very, very briefly, because I'm sure there are quite a few of you who watch the classes regularly. I did not forget about my promise. Yesterday we looked at a reading passage. The reading passage was from our 6th exam. The title of that passage, it was Passage 1, Battle for the World's Tallest Building. And here is the answer key for that passage. So these were the list of headings answers. These were the yes, no, not given ones. And these were the multiple choice. So if you completed that homework from yesterday's class, by the way, students, you can write these down. Try not to memorize them. And if you missed yesterday's class, you can look at our YouTube videos and catch that class. So you can go back to yesterday's class in our video log and look at that class, and then these will be useful for you. Okay, so that's it for my quick preamble, all right? Here we go. Let's get into speaking part 3. Let's start talking about some important points. One of our members, some of you probably noticed that certain names in the chat appear in green, like Naveen Kumar's, and she's got her little hero beside her name, so she's one of our members. One of our members, not Naveen in this case, but one of our members sent a really good question asking us, what is the difference between leisure time and hobbies? Okay, so this was a really good question by a student because we often use these two terms, leisure time and hobbies, synonymously. And in speaking part one, usually, you might get asked this question, what do you like to do in your free time or your leisure time? Or what is your hobby? And often we will use these as synonyms, but you do have to be careful. They're not exactly the same, okay? It's not exactly the same. They're a little bit different, okay? Yeah, leisure time is like free time, but even free time, Irzum, is not exactly the same as leisure time, okay? Free time is time when you're not busy with work or study or something like that. Leisure time is a time when you're actually relaxing. Okay, so you might actually be busy in your leisure time reading a book, but you're doing that for enjoyment, for relaxation. Now, reading a book could be your hobby as well, so it gets a little bit tricky. So here I've made this note for you. Just pay attention to this. It's good to know for all of you. Okay, leisure time and hobby are used as synonyms even by native speakers. There is a difference. So leisure time is free time to relax, okay? Think about it that way. A hobby, on the other hand, is a regular activity which you do because you love doing that and you feel happy when you do it. And you do it regularly, okay? If you do it just once in your lifetime or once a month, not really a hobby, okay? Hobby is redundant. Leisure time might not be a hobby in that you don't have to do it every day. You could have some leisure time where you go and sunbathe beside the swimming pool, and you only do that in the summer if you live in a part of the world where it gets cold during the winter. So sunbathing could be a leisure time activity, but not really a hobby, okay? It would be kind of strange to say that my hobby is sunbathing or sun tanning, depending on which one you use there. So here's a good example. This, and repeat after me, okay? We're doing speaking here, so repeat when I say these. I'm not just this monkey that's jumping around in the live class for you to be amused at. I really want to help you, so repeat after me, okay? I know what I'm saying. I want you to know what you're saying as well. Just repeat me nice and loud, all right? So repeat. All right, so here's an example. In my leisure time, I like to go for a walk, okay? Amira Hamid, sleeping is not really a hobby, okay? And a lot of Asian students say that as well. When I taught in Japan, a lot of students said, my hobby is sleeping. English as a second language teachers, they're used to hearing that, but if you say that in Canada, for example, to a lot of people, they would kind of look at you and go, really? That's a little bit weird. Sleeping is something you like to do in your leisure time. Hobby usually means that you're active a little bit, okay? So a hobby is a regular activity that you do, okay? So repeat after me. In my leisure time, I like to go for a walk, okay? Going for a walk as a hobby is a little bit strange for most Western people, just like sleeping, okay? So sleeping and walking, they're activities. You do them in your leisure time. They're not really considered as hobbies in the West anyway, okay? Hobbies are something like this. This is a classic example. My hobby is collecting coins and stamps, okay? Why? Because that's something you do actively, you do it regularly, you do it with passion. You search for some coins that you want to include in your collection, you order them online, or you go to a store, you exchange them in a club or with a friend. So that would be a hobby, okay? Shopping, again, Sarah Omar, is not really a hobby, okay? Shopping is a leisure activity, okay? Now, reading books is the interesting one, and that's why we can use these as synonyms. So this is a little bit of a cultural issue, and I have a little bit more for you here. Okay, so swimming. Sometimes people say swimming is my hobby, or I go swimming in my leisure time. Yeah, it's understandable, but it's again a little bit awkward for both because swimming is a very active sport. Now, if you're really casually just swimming in the water, then sure, it can be a leisure time activity. But if you actually go swimming for a workout, to do fitness, to do exercise, it's not really a hobby, or it's not really a leisure time activity. You're not really doing it to relax, but it's more of an exercise. It's a physical sport. It's an activity. So swimming is kind of neither. It's an active sport that you pursue, okay? Now, yes, with some activities like reading, it can be a bit tricky. Repeat after me. In my leisure time, I like to read detective novels. Again, in my leisure time, I like to read detective novels. It is one of my hobbies. So in this case, reading detective novels is both a leisure activity because you can do it to relax, and it can be a hobby because you do it actively. As a reader, you can collect these books. You actively read them. You can trade them with your friends. So it's a little bit tricky. Al-Shubia says, what about visiting my family? Visiting your family is kind of neither. It's like swimming. Okay, visiting your family could be relaxing, might not be. It's definitely not your hobby, and we're not sure if it's a leisure activity because if you and your family are having a fight, definitely not a leisure activity to have a fight with your family, okay? Nalvia, playing the piano is something you can do to relax, so it can definitely be a leisure activity, and it can also be a hobby. Now, if you do it for work, or to get money, or you teach it, then not. Then it's your job to play the piano, right? Or you're a musician and that's what you do as you play the piano. So making music can be a hobby and can be a leisure activity, okay? Watching movies, Isaf, is another good example of something that can be a leisure activity and maybe a hobby, maybe it's more of a leisure activity. Okay, because it's passive. When you watch a movie, it's more passive. If you collect movies, right? So my hobby is collecting movies. That would be much more accurate for hobby when you're collecting them, not just watching them, okay? When you think about hobby, again, think about it as it's active. It's active, okay? Leisure time for hanging out with friends. So somebody just asked, what about Jitesh says, what if I say hanging out with friends? Not a hobby, it's just a leisure time activity. Okay, girls and guys, if you have more questions about that, I see it's quite intriguing for many of you, just send me an email and I will let you know if that's a hobby, a leisure time activity, neither or both. But definitely be careful with this. Native speakers will catch it if it's awkwardly used, okay? So, or if these words are awkwardly used. Again, Nalva, don't overcomplicate it. Hobby, you do it regularly, and it's some kind of activity. It's not passive, okay? Leisure time can be passive. All right, so let's talk about part 3 speaking strategies here. Okay, girls and guys, so let's get into this. Part 3, that's the focus. Now, as you may or may not know, IELTS speaking interview, it's about 12 minutes, roughly. You have about 3 minutes of questions on a general topic and some icebreakers to get to know you for part 1. And then for part 2, you get a card with about 4 or 5 questions that you have to interpret, analyze, formulate a response in a clear, structured way, and then give a 2-minute answer. And then after you're done that, you get into part 3. Part 3 are follow-up questions based on part 2. They're a little bit more specific, okay? All right. So here are some important points to consider for part 3. Now, some of these are important for part 1 and 2 as well, but definitely for part 3, you need to think about these, okay? So I've separated these into do's and don't do's for today's lesson, okay? So things you should do or actions you should take and actions you should avoid during part 3. Okay, number 1, do's. Use the question, okay? So when you get asked a question, use the question. Don't just answer it, all right? I'll give you an example of that. In this way, the IELTS speaking is a little bit different from just speaking with your friend or someone in everyday life, okay? In everyday life, we often will quicken our language by only giving the answer and not using the question, okay? So here is a good example of that. Do you think it is important to keep plants around the house? Why or why not? So some students might want to answer this in a very quick way and say, yes, it's important. Because the house feels more friendly, not more friendly, but if you're using very good English, you'll say friendlier with plants. Okay, so this is something that you could easily hear if you are talking about this question in an everyday situation. But for the IELTS, it's not the best. You should try to use the question. So instead of saying yes, it's important because the house feels friendlier with plants, what should I say? So what would be a way that I can stretch my response to this question and make it sound a little bit nicer? So you want to answer this in a more full way. So instead of just saying, yes, it's important because the house feels friendlier with plants, what can I say? Here, Zoom, you can start with an expression like, in my opinion, sure. But here, remember what I'm saying is use the question. Okay, use the question. So use the question. What can I use from this question to make this a little bit more of a round answer? Yeah, so Kesra has a good response there. If you're looking at the chat, she says, keeping plants has a positive effect on my psyche, and it makes my house a little bit more beautiful and lively, so they are good to have, okay? Yeah, Jeffrey, very good. Nice to see you in class. I think it's crucial to have, not to having, I think it's crucial to have plants in one's home because, yeah, so keep plants means to have plants, right? So you want to include that in your answer. So here in the beginning, I should say, yes, maybe not quite there. Yes, it's important to have plants in various places around the house because the house feels friendlier when it's more green. So I don't want to repeat the word plants, maybe something else, but I definitely want to add this in here. It'll be a much more complete sentence. So yes, it's important to have plants in various places around the house, or if I want to be more specific, instead of places, you should always be reaching for the most specific nouns. It's another strategy. Rooms, you'll get a higher mark. So yes, it's important to have plants in various rooms around the house because the house feels friendlier with greenery. Okay, greenery is another way to say plants. You definitely want to avoid too much word repetition. We have the word house already twice here. We could replace it with home, okay? But that's a good answer, all right? So I'll type that in as well and just repeat after me. So do you think it is important to keep plants around the house? Why or why not? Yes. It's crucial. Instead of important, we can paraphrase crucial. To have plants in various rooms around the home because the house feels friendlier and livelier with greenery. Okay, so now I'm pushing my score into those higher bands, all right? So now I'm pushing it into band 7, band 8, all right? Use the question. So that's one of your do's, is use the question. Nayan says, yes, I think it's crucial to install plants around the house. Install is a little bit weird, Nayan, in this context. So yes, I think it's crucial to have plants around the house because it makes my home beautiful and gives me knowledge. Plants also produce flowers and vegetables. A little bit strange. All right, so we'll get at these questions a little bit more, but the focus here is the do's and the don't do's. So number one, use the question, okay? Reflect the grammar of the question. So very, very important that whatever grammar is used in the question, you use it in your answer. Here, in this first one, it was present tense. Do you think it's important to keep? The verb tells me it's present tense. Plants around the house, why or why not? And so I use the present tense. I'm giving a general piece of information. Now, if I jump to the last question here, okay, how has recycling changed the way individuals do their daily shopping? Okay, what is the grammar of this question? Okay, and again, I'm not sure who has that Cyrillic name. Can you give me your name with Arabic letters so I can read it? That means English letters. Who's saying, definitely yes. From my observation, it is marvelous to see plants at home. Don't forget the subject. Okay. All right. So lots of answers there. Vegan Jeffrey, Nayan, Shahil, Sarah Omarir, no, Sunset Swallow, Kasra, yes, Jitesh, yes. It's present perfect, okay? So this is present perfect. We know that because of the has, okay? So we have the perfect participle has, present perfect participle has, and we have the perfect tense of the verb changed, right? It's change, changed, changed. So has changed, it means it's present perfect. So right away, I need to show in my answer when the examiner asks me this that I realize it's a present perfect question, okay? So I need to include that in my answer. The easiest way, what's the easiest way to speak nice and fast, fluently, and show the person that I realize this is a present perfect question? How can I start with this answer? Okay, how can I start my answer here? So how can I show right away that I know what's going on with the grammar in this question? Okay, how has recycling changed the way individuals do their daily shopping? Okay, I need full sentences here, so depicts, and nowadays these are just partials. I need a little bit more. So Naveen says, yes, there has been significant change over the years due to recycling, right? So don't forget about the subject here, recycling. How has recycling changed the way individuals do their daily shopping? Okay, you don't need to tell me, like Berhanu Shetty is telling me, that these days recycling has changed. Yeah, well, maybe it's good. Berhanu Shetty, sorry, I was jumping a little bit there. You could go with that, okay? Amar Wadi, you're already going into specifics like plastic bag. You can keep it more simple. So you can do this, okay? Take this, put it to the front. So recycling has definitely, okay, definitely is a nice little trick word that you can use here to give an affirmative answer, a positive yes. Okay, saying yes. So recycling has definitely, and then throw in the verb. Okay, so right away, I'm showing my present perfect recognition. And if I'm a little bit clever and going for those higher scores, then the only extra step that I may take is to try to paraphrase this. Okay, what's another way to say changed? Okay, Muhammad Wahab says, nowadays there has been drastic changes in recycling items in our everyday life. Muhammad, your grammar is okay, but you're off topic. Okay, because it's about shopping here, so you need to finish with that. Don't worry, I'll turn the camera back on right away. It just needs to take a quick little snooze there for 1 second, so give me a moment while you think about that. Okay, so all you want to do is, if possible, paraphrase the verb. Okay, so definitely paraphrase the verb. And Mushtari Khalilova says altered. Yeah, so paraphrase that. Recycling has definitely altered the way people shop. Okay. These days. Okay, this is the fastest, most simple way to get a high band score when you're answering this question. You're answering the question directly, quickly, and you're reflecting the grammar. Okay, so if you want to take the easiest road, I don't say it's easy, but it's the easiest road to your high band score, then this is what you need to do with these questions. Reflect the grammar, use these main elements, okay, and just immediately answer. So repeat after me. How has recycling changed the way individuals do their shopping? What else can be done in the future? Well, that's an interesting question. Recycling has definitely altered the way people shop these days. For instance, our parents used a lot of plastic bags when they went to the grocery store. These days, plastic bags cost money to encourage people to not use them. Therefore, many people take reusable fabric bags to grocery stores. Okay? Now, that second part, you can simplify it. You can just say, many people use cloth bags instead of plastic bags for their shopping. Okay, you can make it more simple. But the idea is start off with this element. Okay, reflect that question. We can come back to that in a moment. But for now, let me just type this in here for you. So again, have a second look. Think about your answers as well. So recycling has definitely altered the way people shop these days. Only a couple decades ago, most people, most individuals used plastic bags to go to the grocery store. But these days, people often shop with reusable cloth bags. Okay. All right. So let me erase that and let's have a peek at some more do's. I'll look at some of your suggested answers here, so don't worry. Kessler says social media has raised awareness about recycling. As a result, the way people shop has changed towards making less plastic and, of course, environmentally friendly lifestyle. Kessler, a little bit awkward there. I'm not sure where you're bringing social media in with this one. Be careful about that, okay? All right, let's have a look at some of the more do's here. So use the question, reflect the grammar. Learn to buy time, okay, and pick easy answers. That's very important for part 3. Sometimes when I'm interviewing students for the speaking section of IELTS, I notice that their English is fairly good, but I can't give them a good mark because I have to be objective, and I can only mark you on what you're actually saying, and I can't mark you on something that I think you could say, okay? But there are situations where I think the student could give a fairly good answer if they just picked the easy answer. Instead, the student picks something true, something difficult, something very specific to their culture or to their own personal history, and then they start talking about it and they get lost and they get into trouble because, of course, they're missing some of that difficult vocabulary, even feeling stressed and tense in the testing situation. A native speaker could have trouble as well. So pick the easy answer, okay? Think about what 9 out of 10 people would give as the easy answer for the question, all right? Let's have a look at something here. Let's have a look at a question and see if we can find one where you'd want to buy time and try to pick an easy answer. Okay, so let's have a look at this question here. Okay, let's take a peek at this one. So let's say you're sitting there and the examiner says, okay, the first one here is a good one too for this, but we'll take this one. What may happen in future societies if people put all their waste into the garbage and do not recycle? Okay, now that's a theoretical question, okay? And part 3 often will contain one of these theoretical questions. If this happens, what do you think will happen? Now, even in everyday situations, if a friend or a teacher or a colleague or a parent or a child asks us this kind of a question, we usually think about it for a minute and then we answer, okay? So think before you speak. Now here, you definitely want to buy time. And there are a lot of different expressions that you can use to buy time as well as natural fillers. So you might start off with something like, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting and important question. I'm sure many of you will agree that it's an important question to ask. What will happen in society if we keep just throwing everything that we feel is waste into landfills and garbage dumps, okay? So that's an interesting and important question. Please give me a moment to gather my thoughts, okay? This is a very polite and intelligent way to request some time to actually think about your answer. Now, when you say this kind of a sentence, you can actually think for a few seconds, okay? You're there for 12 minutes. 12 minutes is roughly, what is that? 60 seconds times 10, so it's like 720 seconds you're there for. So you're there for 720 seconds, using 5 seconds from 720 seconds to think of an intelligent answer is a good use of time. So this can buy you that 5 seconds, okay? That's an interesting and important question. Please give me a moment to gather my thoughts. And now here, what do you think 9 of 10 people would say? That's the question that you should be thinking of, okay? So what would 9 from 10 people say to this question? I sang that so that it will situate itself like a little seed in your ear, so you remember that important piece, okay? So what do you think 9 out of 10 people would say? This is what you need to think about. What would happen in future societies if people just kept throwing away their garbage, okay? Kessler says there would be more plastic and waste in the world than people, like as far as weight goes. Kessler, I think we're already there. Sad truth, but I think there's already probably more weight in garbage than in humans, in plastic and so on, so we're kind of there. What do you think happens? So 9 out of 10 people, keep it simple, visualize. 9 out of 10 people, if we keep throwing our garbage away, what happens? Keep it simple. Jeffrey says there'll be soon not enough land. I don't know if I agree with you, Jeffrey. The Japanese have figured out how to actually make islands from garbage. In fact, Narita Airport in Japan is partially built on a garbage island, if I'm not mistaken. Manisha says, will there be continued growth in pollution? Sure. Keep it simple. Naveen, I missed yours. Sorry, I'm not sure what you said. So Rushni says there will be more disease and sickness. Sure, yes. Take it one step further, Rushni. Mohammed says probably in the future society will get contaminated if we keep throwing away garbage. Sure, and society, girls and guys, it's already contaminated. So what happens if there's a lot of contamination? I think you're still missing some of the easy answer here. And this is the trick. The easy answers are sometimes not so easy to find. That's why you have to practice at home. Good, Naveen. I think that's why you were so excited for me to read your answer, because you knew you had a good answer. So Naveen says almost all the greenery will be eradicated or extinct from nature because of toxins and pollution, right? So I think the easiest answer here will be pollution will lead to the death of nature and eventually humans as well. I think if you ask 9 out of 10 smart people out there in the world, what do you think will happen if we just keep mindlessly throwing garbage away? They will tell you that, well, nature will die and so will people, okay? That is the cold, hard truth. Yes, Naveen, I think you had that visually going on as well. So that's what you want to think of, okay? When you say, that's an interesting and important question, please give me a moment to think. Now you can answer, okay? And this is kind of a conditional. What may happen in future societies if people put all their waste? So here, again, reflect the question, use the question. Don't forget about those 2 do's that we talked about before. Use the question and the grammar, okay? So here, what you would say, let me just make this into italics for you so you know that this is just part of your thinking, okay? And then here, you would probably say, well, provided that people do not recycle and simply throw away all of their garbage carelessly, I suppose in the future nature will suffer, perhaps die out, which will eventually lead to the extinction of the human race, of humans as well. Okay, now, of course, I'm teaching you some vocabulary here, and I'm giving you complex sentences because I'm pushing your abilities to the highest level. You could say this in a more simple way as well, the second part, but the idea here is to come up with the right answer, with the easy answer, reflect the question. So here, instead of using if, I'm using provided that, but that is the same as saying if people do not recycle, okay? You can simplify, all right? Okay, repeat after me. So here, again, let's go back to the question. The question is, again, repeat nice and loud. What may happen in future societies if people put all their waste into the garbage and do not recycle? That's an interesting and important question. Please give me a moment to gather my thoughts. Well, provided that people do not recycle and simply throw away all of their trash carelessly, I suppose in the future nature will suffer, perhaps die out, which will eventually lead to the extinction of humans as well. Okay, now if you give that answer, you're definitely on path to a nice high band score. So let's go back and keep talking about the do's and the don'ts. Big one here, as you can see from my big letters, my choice of all capitalization. When you capitalize this, like this in English writing, it means you're really emphasizing very, very strongly. I think some students use capitalization like this in their emails very liberally. Careful about that. When you write an email, only use this kind of writing if you're very angry at someone. Otherwise, or if you're a teacher and you want your students to really pay attention, otherwise don't use all capital letters, okay? Capital letters are very strong. It's like an exclamation. It's like yelling at people. And here I am yelling at you, not because I'm angry at you, but because I want you to remember this, okay? So remember this, all right? Always include an example when possible to back up your points. So you should always be thinking about your answers as answer, explain, and example. While you think about that, I'll read a couple of responses from our students for the previous one. Kesra Reza says, there are too many landfills all over the place, contaminating rivers and other bodies of water. I think sooner or later it's going to come back to bite us if we continue to go about it in this way, meaning that we're going to be diseased, there will be a lot of illnesses, which will eventually lead to the extinction of humans. Something like that, Kesra. I would finish that idea a little bit of how it will bite us. So that's what's missing in your answer, Kesra, is how it will bite us. Okay. Mohammed says, well, most probably in future societies, they will be contaminated and deadly diseases will spread rampantly. Epidemics will be common. And it will not only destroy natural vegetation, but also the world will become a very unhealthy place to live. I did a lot of corrections there, Mohammed, because there's a lot of awkward wording, so pay attention to that, okay? Vera, yes, always remember, okay? Always include an example. So what am I talking about here? Okay, what am I talking about here with always include an example? So let's go back to this question here. Let's revisit this and see how we can make this one into a band 9 instead of just a band 8. So for those of you who are watching from the beginning, you'll remember we started with this one here. So repeat after me. Do you think it is important to keep plants around the house? Why or why not? Repeat after me. Yes, it's crucial to have plants in various rooms around the home because the house feels friendlier and livelier with greenery. For this question, I would absolutely include an example to bump my score to a band 9. Okay, so I've given my answer, I've given my explanation, and I want to back that up with an example. So let's include that example now. Okay, give me an example for this one. Okay, lots of different examples that you can give me here. Give me an example. Aditya, it's kind of funny to say that. We will travel with Musk to Mars, and I get the humor, but you got to be careful with that kind of thinking because Mars is a very cold place. I'd rather stay on Earth if possible. All right, anyway, that's a little side note. So let's see what your examples are. So Amarwadi says, I keep plants in my living room. Don't say I used to put Amarwadi because that means you don't have them there anymore. In this case, you'd want to say that you actually have plants currently in your living room and give me something specific. So what kind of plant? Just any plant, okay, that you can think of. And you can even say something crazy like I have a rose bush in the corner of my living room with red flowers and it looks really beautiful. So that's good as well. Just be specific, okay? Rahul says, as they provide us healthy air for breathing and shade during the summers. Rahul, I don't know if that's that. So that would be a little bit weird for me as the examiner because here we're talking about greenery in the house. If you talked about your garden, but that's outside of your house. This is more about your home. So you have to be a little bit careful, okay? Jeffrey says, for example, I have a tiger lily in my room, and as soon as I walk in, the soothing scent relaxes me. Jeffrey, yeah, that'll get you a 9. Okay, if you finish the sentence that way, you will get a 9. That's a very high-level answer. You've given me the specific name of a plant. You've explained very clearly what happens. I was very visually there as you walk into the room. You smell it. It's all good. Naveen says, hanging basket plants like geranium on my balcony look aesthetic and fantastic. That's good as well, Naveen. Just keep it inside the home, okay? In the house, all right? Balcony is, again, a little bit more outside the house, okay? In the house, in the house. Urvashi Bashvana says, for instance, I've placed many plants, such as a snake plant, in my bedroom, which actually makes the air more fresh, especially at night when I'm sleeping. Okay. There's another one. I like to put flowers like jasmine in my room. It gives me positive energy and leaves the home smelling fresh. Okay. Absolutely. Those are some good answers. So let's just take one of those and finish this sentence up. For instance, I have several Chinese evergreens around my home, and as soon as I walk in the door from work and see them, I feel relaxed. Okay, so that's a band 9. That's how you push to a band 9. So I've used the question, I've reflected the grammar, I gave an answer, a clear explanation, and I've included a relevant, visible example from my own life or from my own experiences. This gets you a band 9. That's how you get high band scores. Even if you have a couple of grammar mistakes in here, even if you have a couple of word choice mistakes, as long as I can understand this information from what you're saying, you will still get a good band score. You will still get a 7, 7.5, okay? Because this is a good to very good user of English. If there's no mistakes, it is an expert user of English. It's a band 9, okay? All right, so yes, it is crucial to have plants in various rooms around the home because the house feels friendlier and livelier with greenery. Repeat. For instance, I have several Chinese evergreens around my home, and as soon as I walk in the door from work and see them, I feel relaxed. All right. So that is the do's, okay? So I started with the do's. You should always be an optimist, a positive thinker. Think about the do's before you think of the don't do's. The do's are more important to think of in some ways than the do's, because this is what you should do, okay? So use the question, reflect the grammar of the question. Learn to buy time, pick the easy answers. Always include an example when possible to back up your answer, okay? Really important. Okay, let's look at the don't use, or don't use. The don't use. The don't do's. First of all, don't use you, okay? My brain is maybe going a little bit faster than my mouth, believe it or not, because point number one is don't use you. You or your, okay? Many students do this. Many people do this. I do this. I use the word you when I'm talking in everyday conversations. It's natural. It's natural psychology. Most of us do it because we want people to pay attention to what we're saying. If we say you, then the other person goes, what, me? And they listen, okay? So it's a psychological strategy that's naturally wired in our brain to talk to other people and use the word you or yours to involve them in the conversation or in what we're saying. And that way, we try to hold their attention. But it's bad information. And Muhammad Yusuf, we is kind of the same, okay? We pulls your audience with you, and it's often not true, okay? So I'll give you an example of where it could be really weird, okay? So even in this first one, do you think it's important to keep plants around the house? Why or why not? And then some students will say something like, yes, it's important because when you keep a plant around the house, you will feel really good about yourself and you can have fresh air in your home, okay? And then what if the person's like, well, why are you talking about me? I have serious allergy to a lot of plants, so I can't actually have plants in my home because I can start coughing and sneezing so badly that I go to the hospital. So that's why I don't have any plants in my house. But good for you if that works for you, okay? So don't use you. You don't know your listener. You don't know who they are, what they're allergic to, what they're not allergic to. So you don't want to address them directly. Instead, use the word people, individuals, I, me, my, okay? Avoid saying you, okay? And that's right, Naveen. A lot of times when people start using you, it gets really redundant. So then they keep saying you. They're like you, and then it's just like, stop it. So don't use you, okay? Avoid the you. You're not talking about your examiner. You're talking about people. You're talking about yourself. Kesra, don't use it even to refer to information generally, okay? Just use people. All right, stay out of trouble. Here's another one of the don't do's. Don't just keep talking until the examiner stops you. All right, so don't keep talking until the examiner stops you. So if we go to this question here, and you gave this answer, you don't want to keep going here. Okay, so you don't want to say, oh, it's crucial to have plants in various rooms around the home because the house feels friendlier and livelier with greenery. For instance, I have several Chinese evergreens around my home, and as soon as I walk in the door from work and see them, I feel relaxed. Then when I sit down and turn on the TV, and then I'm looking at the plants, they make me feel happy. After that, when I get up from the couch to make some food and walk into my kitchen and notice that there are roses on the table, I realize that my wife put them there because she loves me, and that also makes me feel good. And it's kind of like, whoa, slow down there, Chief. You don't need to talk about everything in the world about plants and all that they mean and A to Z, and often what happens is students go off topic and they start talking about other information. Don't do that. It's not good, okay? Wait for the next question. So again, answer, explain, solid example, stop. Wait for the next question, okay? Give a chance for the examiner to ask you that next question. So don't just keep talking, okay? Not a good idea. Number 3, a very important one. Avoid the word things, something, sometime. Why? So why? Ritika, you're very, very welcome. Why do I not want to use this? And especially when you're preparing for IELTS at home and you're practicing the speaking, you want to avoid using the word things, something, sometimes. Like there are a lot of things that plants are good for in the home, okay? So let's say I answered that. There are a lot of things. Okay, so this could be an answer if a student is a little bit quick and they're not thinking about the right strategy. They might start their sentence off with something like this. Plants are good for a lot of things in the house. This is not a good way to start your answer. Okay, it's not terrible, but it's not a good way. And you're right, Jeffrey, I saw that. You said it very quickly. It has no value. You haven't told me anything. You've told me nothing at this point. I can replace the word plants with other words. Dishes are good for a lot of things around the house. Wood is good for a lot of things around the house. Glass is good for a lot of things around the house. Food is good for a lot of things around the house. So it has no value, okay? It has no value for that subject. So all you've done is you've just wasted quality time, okay? You want to always find a more specific noun, okay? So I'll get the picture back here while you think about that. So instead of things, plants are good for energy, for fresh air, for a nice scent. So they're good for actual things, not just things around the house, okay? Keep that in mind, okay? So don't use things. And something, sometime, they are basically synonyms to things, okay? So don't use something, sometime, okay? If you, yeah, stuff, definitely not. So somebody just, Sunset Swallow said, don't use the word stuff. Stuff is slang for things, so stuff is even worse than things, okay? So plants are good for a lot of stuff around the house. It's even worse, okay? It's even worse, all right? Okay. Let's see, what else? Don't try to speak really fast, okay? Some students, I've had a lot of students from India who do this, where they feel like they really need to talk quickly to the examiner to get a really high score, because that means that your fluency is excellent if you're able to talk like that, but it's really not. Okay, there is a wide range of speed that people have in their natural diction. All right. So some people are very methodical. It means they think about what they say. It slows their speech. They give clear responses to questions with good detail, good pronunciation, and it's absolutely fine. In fact, speaking slower, if that improves the quality of your answers, is better than speaking super, super fast and then just giving some silly answers, okay? So don't speak ridiculously slow, succinct, so you don't want to speak like a sloth, but there is a good range, and you don't have to worry that you're speaking too slowly, okay? If your pauses are natural, if you are pausing or if you're speaking a little bit slower because you're thinking about your answer, that's okay. If you're speaking slowly or you pause because you can't think about the word or you can't really understand the question, yeah, you start losing marks, okay? Jaimin Bhatt says, just speak naturally, okay? Don't be shy to speak slowly, okay? And that's my last point here is avoid awkward breaks, okay? So if you take a break in a natural place in the sentence because you're thinking about a good answer, such as what I'm doing right now, you will get a good score. But if you take unnatural pauses, then your score will go down, because an IELTS examiner can actually realize when you're taking a pause because you can't think about the English word versus you're trying to think about the information. Okay, so pay attention to that. Kirti Ravat says, sir, can we use and in our speaking? Absolutely. Don't overuse it, but natural fillers like and are natural parts of language. Everybody uses it, or many of us use them. If they're not overused, if they're not used awkwardly, they absolutely will help your communication. I use them. You'll probably notice that when you watch these videos. So it is okay as long as they're not overused and they're used naturally. Okay? Okay, girls and guys, so we've answered a few of these 6 Part 3 questions. We haven't answered a few of them. Okay? So we haven't answered this one. Do you think it's mainly the role of governments or individuals to make sure people recycle? Why? We haven't answered this one. What can people do to reduce the amount of tree products like paper in their daily lives? So we haven't answered those ones. Answer those ones for homework. Remember the do's and the don'ts when you give your answers. You can send them to me my email, and I will let you know that you remembered the do's and the don'ts, or you missed some of them and you should look again. Tomorrow we will have a members chat only. It will be a task 2 writing sample. Again, good luck to many of you who are doing speaking exams today and tomorrow, or if you're doing your written exam, good luck with that as well. If you have questions, feel free to rip me a quick email, adrian@aehelp.com. Buy our books if you join these classes regularly from Amazon, AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. Okay, it's good to have those paper books with you so you know exactly what we're doing and you can use them for review. And of course, if you want our books, videos, interactive course, speaking, writing support, join us on our websites for our premium full course. aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you for all of those who are participating actively. That's great. I always encourage that. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Naveen, yes, the task 2 question is finalized for tomorrow's class, but send me a request and I'll consider it for the next one, okay? Have a great rest of your day. Wonderful rest. Sweet dreams if you're getting ready for bed. And I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye for now, everyone.